It all began with what should have been an ordinary dinner, a simple, innocent meal. At least, that's what I told myself at the time. Jessica, my wife, had been working late again, consumed by an important project, as she often was. Her career had always been demanding, something I admired about her, though it often left me alone in the evenings. During this particular stretch of late nights, her mother, Linda, had moved in with us for the summer while her condo underwent renovations. She was supposed to be a temporary guest, but from the moment she stepped through the front door, I had a feeling this summer would be anything but ordinary. Linda wasn't like most mothers-in-law. There was a magnetic charm about her, a quiet confidence that made her effortlessly commanding. She could draw attention without raising her voice or demanding it. When she entered a room, it was as if a shift in the atmosphere occurred, an undeniable presence that demanded notice. She had a way of making everything feel intentional, every glance, every word, every movement. That night, I arrived home later than usual, the rich aroma of beef bourguignon simmering on the stove, filling the house. Linda was in the kitchen, her hair tied loosely, wearing a sundress that clung to her figure in a way that was difficult to ignore. It wasn't just any dress. It was Jessica's favorite. The choice seemed deliberate, almost like a challenge. "You're home," Linda said, her voice warm but with an undertone that I couldn't quite place. There was something in the way she looked at me, a subtle intensity that set me on edge. "Jessica's favorite dress," I remarked, trying to keep my tone light, casual. She smiled, a knowing smile that lingered. "And yours too, isn't it?" she replied, flicking her hand dismissively. Her eyes stayed on mine, teasing, as though she was playing a game I wasn't ready to confront. Her words hung in the air, full of unspoken implications. We ate dinner in silence, but the quiet between us wasn't comfortable. It was thick with tension, a weight that pressed down with every unspoken word. Her questions about my day seemed pointed, her tone playfully accusatory, as though she enjoyed seeing me squirm under her gaze. After dinner, she poured 2 glasses of wine and joined me on the couch, sitting too close, her presence overwhelming. "Why are you so tense, Alex?" she asked, her fingers brushing lightly against mine as she handed me the glass. The touch was brief but electric, a spark that made my pulse quicken. I stumbled through an excuse, feeling the heat of her eyes on me as I abruptly stood up, mumbling something about work emails. As I walked away, I could feel her gaze following me, sharp, challenging, as though daring me to react. Linda was playing a game, a dangerous one with rules I didn't understand, but I already knew I was losing. The days that followed blurred together, each marked by Linda's subtle provocations. She seemed to find every excuse to be near me, her touch lingering just a moment too long when she passed by in the hallway. Her laughter filled the spaces left by Jessica's absence, and it felt like she was taking advantage of the distance between my wife and me. Jessica was always busy, buried in deadlines and meetings, oblivious to the undercurrent that had crept into our home. One afternoon, while Jessica was at the office, Linda joined me by the pool where I was working on my laptop. She wore a bikini that left little to the imagination, her confidence both alluring and unsettling. "You work too much, Alex," she teased, settling into the lounger beside me. "I have deadlines," I replied curtly, keeping my eyes glued to the screen, trying to maintain control. "Deadlines," she echoed mockingly, leaning closer. "You need to learn to relax." Before I could respond, she placed her hands on my shoulders, her fingers pressing firmly into the knots in my muscles. The touch was deliberate, almost possessive. I froze, torn between the instinct to pull away and the temptation to let her continue. Her breath was warm against my neck, her perfume intoxicating and invasive. My heart pounded, each beat a reminder of the dangerous line we were dancing on. I knew I had to stop this, to say something, to put an end to whatever this was becoming. But when I turned to speak, her eyes met mine, filled with a dangerous intensity that both terrified and captivated me. There was something there, something that hinted at secrets, at intentions I wasn't ready to face. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Linda. Her smile, her touch, the way she looked at me, as though she knew things I didn't even want to admit to myself. Guilt gnawed at me, a sharp, relentless ache. Jessica deserved my loyalty, my devotion. But the more I tried to push the thoughts away, the more they consumed me, pulling me deeper into something I couldn't control. The following evening, Jessica had a dinner meeting with her boss. When I returned home, I knew I was stepping into something that had already gone too far. The air felt charged, the house heavy with an unspoken tension I couldn't escape. When I walked through the door, the familiar scent of a home-cooked meal welcomed me. But tonight, something felt different. Linda was waiting for me again, her presence almost magnetic, drawing me in even when I knew I should resist. She had prepared a meal that could rival any five-star restaurant, a perfectly cooked steak, golden roasted potatoes, and a salad so artfully arranged it looked almost too good to eat. "You need to eat properly," she said, her voice carrying a playful edge. Yet beneath the lightness lay a tone of authority, subtle but undeniable. I sat down, feeling the tension in the air thickening with each passing second. There was a weight to her words, an unspoken challenge. As we began to eat, her foot brushed against mine under the table. At first, I dismissed it as accidental, a mere misstep. But when it happened again, more deliberate this time, I knew better. "Linda," I said sharply, my voice filled with a mix of confusion and warning, as if trying to establish a boundary that had already been crossed. She tilted her head, eyes wide, playing innocent. "What is it, Alex?" "You know exactly what you're doing," I replied, leaning back in my chair, trying to assert control over a situation that felt like it was slipping through my fingers. Her lips curled into a knowing smirk. "Do I?" she teased, standing up and walking around the table with a slow, deliberate grace. My breath caught in my throat as she leaned down, her face close to mine, the space between us charged with an unspoken electricity. "This thing between us," she whispered, her voice low and intimate, each word like a carefully aimed arrow. "You feel it too. Don't deny it." I pushed back from the table, the chair scraping against the floor. "This is insane, Linda. You're Jessica's mother." My voice trembled with disbelief, my mind racing to find an escape route. "And you're her husband," she replied calmly, crossing her arms over her chest. "But that hasn't stopped you from thinking about me, has it?" Her words hit me hard, leaving me momentarily speechless. I wanted to deny it, to tell her she was wrong, but the truth was already written all over my face. She stepped closer, her fingers lightly tracing down my arm, sending a shiver through me. "No one has to know," she whispered, the words almost a plea, almost a command. I knew I should walk away, leave the room, the house, anything to break free from the spell she was weaving around me. But instead, I stood frozen, paralyzed by the pull she had over me. When she leaned in, her lips brushing softly against mine, I faltered. For a fleeting moment, I kissed her back, my hands finding their way to her waist as if on their own. But the moment snapped like a brittle thread. I pulled away, heart pounding. "This is wrong," I whispered, the words hollow, more for myself than for her. Her triumphant smile deepened, her eyes gleaming. "It doesn't feel wrong," she said, each word a challenge. I turned and walked out, my mind a whirlwind of guilt, desire, and betrayal. Even as I left the room, I knew that something irrevocable had happened. The next morning, the house was filled with an uneasy calm. Linda acted as though nothing had occurred. Over breakfast, she chatted casually, her demeanor light and unbothered, while I struggled to meet her eyes. Every time I tried, I saw the betrayal, the weight of what we had done. Jessica kissed me goodbye before heading to work, completely oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. As she left, Linda appeared in the doorway, her expression unreadable. "You can't avoid me forever," she said, her voice soft but firm. "I'm not doing this," I replied, the conviction in my voice shaky, almost desperate. She stepped closer, her gaze penetrating. You already did, Alex. And you will again. Her confidence unnerved me because deep down, I knew she was right. No matter how much I tried to fight it, I was drawn to her, helpless against the pull, even though I knew it would destroy everything. Days turned into weeks, each one a slow erosion of my resolve. Every stolen glance, every accidental brush of hands chipped away at the barrier I was trying to rebuild. Linda knew exactly what she was doing, and the worst part was, so did I. The tension between us was a taut wire, ready to snap at any moment. The breaking point came one evening when Jessica suggested a family movie night. It was supposed to be a simple, comforting moment, a rare chance for us all to spend time together. I agreed. Though my mind was a battlefield of conflicting emotions, Linda played her role perfectly, calm and composed, until midway through the movie. She excused herself, returning moments later with her phone in hand, her expression cold, her intent unmistakable. Jessica, she said, interrupting the scene on the screen. We need to talk. Jessica paused the movie, confusion and concern creasing her brow. What's going on, Mom? Linda's eyes flicked to me, then back to Jessica. There's something you need to know about Alex. A surge of panic shot through me. Linda, don't, I pleaded, my voice cracking. Jessica looked between us, her eyes wide with alarm. Alex, what is she talking about? Linda held up her phone. He hasn't been honest with you, Jess. There's something going on between us. Jessica's face went pale. Her eyes fixed on the screen as Linda scrolled through the messages I had sent, moments of weakness laid bare. Jessica's hands trembled as she read, tears welling up before rage took over. Is this true? She demanded, her voice breaking. I opened my mouth to deny it, but the truth was already written all over my face. Jessica, How could you? She screamed. With her? My mother? Linda's smirk faltered as Jessica turned on her. And you're my mother. How could you do this? Regret flashed across Linda's face. I never meant for it to happen. But Alex, he wanted it too. Jessica grabbed her keys, tears streaming down her face. She stormed out, leaving a deafening silence in her wake. She didn't come home that night. The next day, she returned with friends to pack her things. Every word I spoke fell on deaf ears. There's nothing to talk about, Alex. You made your choice. Her voice was cold, final. Months passed, but the damage remained. Jessica filed for divorce, and I signed the papers without protest. Linda tried to contact me once, but I ignored her. There was nothing left to say. In the end, I was left with nothing but regret. A hollow shell of the life I had destroyed for a fleeting moment of temptation.